In the north of Burkina Faso, across lands once scarred by gunfire, a new sound is rising, the sound of water. Not the hollow promises of international forums, nor the applause from brightly lit conferences, but the hum of pumps drawing life from old wells, the lowing of cattle returning home, and the laughter of children bathing under cool, flowing water. Where once there was only dust and the bones of war, now appear glimpses of harvest, of hope, of people daring to begin again. Perhaps no nation understands the true cost of peace more deeply than Burkina Faso, a land once torn apart by terror, hunger, and despair. More than 2 million displaced, hundreds of villages destroyed, and the people's faith buried beneath rubble. Yet amid the ruin, a small flame was lit, not by promises of aid, but by the hands of the people themselves, guided by a young man in khaki, whose eyes never waver from the horizon. Ibrahim Traoré. He does not speak in slogans. He does not dream in lofty resolutions. He says only one thing, simple yet profound. Peace is not a speech. Peace is when a mother can sleep without fear, when a child can go to school without hearing gunfire. From those words, a nation began to rewrite its destiny. With guns, but not only guns. With seeds, with goats, with calloused hands digging deep into the red earth. Burkina Faso today does not rise from pity. It rises from dignity, and that is what makes the world pause and listen. In the place once called the dead zone of Africa by the West, water now flows from old wells, children return to school, and farmers sow once abandoned fields. This is not merely a story of security, or economics, or politics. It is the story of a people reclaiming their soul. Amid smoke and ruin, they chose not to fall, they chose to begin again. From soil, from seed, from the laughter of their children. And perhaps in this noisy world, their story is a quiet reminder to us all. That dignity is never granted, it is forged by hands that dare to do what is right. This is the story of a nation reborn, Burkina Faso, teaching the world the meaning of resilience and true sovereignty. Join us on this journey. To plant a seed, the soil must first be cleansed. For Burkina Faso, cleansing the soil meant more than removing weeds. It meant reclaiming land, rebuilding trust, and erasing the fear that had taken root in people's hearts. When Ibrahim Traoré took power in 2022, more than 1/3 of the country was outside state control. Roads were abandoned, schools burned down, and through the nights, only the echo of gunfire came from villages lost to terror. It was no longer war, it was the disappearance of order, of faith. Traoré understood that without security, nothing survives. Without security, there are no markets, no schools, no harvests. So he did not begin with lofty plans or international conferences. He began with the most essential thing, safety for the people. His strategy, known as the two-layer defense, was launched in his first year. The first layer, Rapid Intervention Battalions, RIB. Elite units trained to strike swiftly, reclaim occupied areas, reopen roads, and restore humanitarian corridors. The second layer, Mobile Police and Gendarmerie units. They did not just come and go, they stayed. Stayed to guard the wells, protect the schools, and rebuild daily life alongside the people. We do not just want to reclaim the land, we want the land to live again, Traoré said during a visit to the Nord region. And indeed, the results spoke for themselves. 28 rapid battalions deployed, major roads reopened, and over 1 million displaced people returned home, all within just 3 years. In places once called red zones, you can now hear children's laughter beneath makeshift classrooms under mango trees. Small markets reopen each morning where people trade seed bags and young goats, bought with their own earnings, not aid. Western media call it an expansion of military control. But the people call it something else, the return of life. A man in Damascus said simply, "I'd rather have a soldier at the crossroads than a gunman in my field." Those words capture the very essence of change. Because security is no longer about large-scale operations, it's about peace in the moments of everyday life. It's when a woman can fetch water without an escort. When a farmer can take his ox to the field without looking over his shoulder. Traoré calls it human terrain control, a new concept, yet one that perfectly reflects his vision. We don't raise flags over the land, we rebuild life upon it. From that foundation of security, Burkina Faso began to transform. Villages along the Malian border lit up again. Soldiers, after finishing their missions, stayed behind digging wells, building schools, planting trees, and sharing stories. Security was no longer the job of the state alone, it became the duty of every citizen. The soldier became a neighbor, the farmer became a defender of his land. When the guns fell silent, the sounds of hose and flowing water began to rise. And that was the true beginning of rebirth, a new kind of battle, fought not with bullets, but with seeds and dignity. But when the guns grow quiet, another battle begins, the fight to end hunger. And that is our next story, the Second War, reclaiming food sovereignty. As the guns fell silent, Burkina Faso faced another enemy, hunger. A silent war, yet far more brutal than any battlefield. For if a person can die from bullets, they can also die from an empty stomach. Ibrahim Traoré understood this truth deeply. In a humble speech in the Boucle du Mouhoun region, he said, "Reclaiming the land is not enough. That land must feed its people." Sovereignty doesn't begin with declarations, it begins with the first grain of rice grown on our own soil. From that philosophy came the National Agro-Pastoral and Fisheries Offensive 2023-2025, an unprecedented plan to revive and modernize 8 key sectors: rice, maize, cassava, livestock, poultry, fisheries, wheat, and mango. Over 592 billion CFA francs, about $1 billion was poured directly into the fields. No middlemen, no conferences. The government wasn't buying weapons, it was buying tractors, water pumps, seeds, and dreams. In areas once scarred by bombs, green fields began to reappear. Irrigation channels were cleared and rebuilt. Farmers' cooperatives received fertilizer, tools, and training from young agricultural experts. By the 2025 harvest, local rice production had risen by over 11%, and hundreds of unemployed youth left the cities to return home to farm. But this revolution wasn't just happening in the fields. It was unfolding on school lunch tables, in the cooking pots of poor families. The Traoré government convinced the World Food Programme, WFP, to shift its policy to stop importing rice from Europe and instead buy directly from local farmers. As a result, millions of school meals are now cooked with rice, potatoes, and meat grown, raised, and processed by the people of Burkina Faso. Farmers have steady markets, schools have clean food, children attend regularly, women gain work in school kitchens. It is the model of what Traoré calls the economy of dignity, an ecosystem of self-reliance. Of course, not everyone believed in it. Western media accused the policy of isolating the nation from international aid or being populist in nature. But in the villages, people saw it differently. A farmer in Arbelay told a reporter, "When we grow the rice that feeds our own children, that's not politics, that's freedom." Freedom not written in a constitution, but in every bowl of rice, no longer waiting for relief aid. Freedom not declared on a stage, but planted and harvested by one's own hands. Sovereignty begins with food, not speeches. Chủ quyền bắt đầu từ lúa, không phải từ lời nói. Is in every bag of rice brought to market, in every child eating a warm meal at school, something greater is returning faith. Faith that a nation can stand on its own feet. Faith that the scars of war can be covered by the green of new harvest. Burkina Faso's second war has no smoke, no medals, no heroes in uniform. Only farmers, women, and youth, silent warriors, fighting with hose, with sweat, and with hope. And from those fields, a new idea is taking root. Food sovereignty. Not just to eat, but to live with dignity. Not just to survive, but to be free. As the rice stalks rise, another thought emerges. When will the animals return? Because for the people of Burkina Faso, a goat is not just wealth, it is the beginning of hope. And that is the next story, the revolution of goats and human dignity. If rice symbolizes life, then the goat stands for dignity. For the people of Burkina Faso, a goat is not merely a source of meat or milk, it is a mobile bank, a form of savings, a chance to start life anew. That's why, when displaced families returned home after the war, their first question was not, "Where is my house?" but, "Can I raise my goats again?" Ibrahim Traoré understood this deeply. During a visit to the town of Barcelogo, he said, "A single goat can change the destiny of a family. Because when you give people the means to feed themselves, you return to them their dignity." From that belief was born the National Livestock Resettlement Program known as the Livestock Resettlement Kits. This was not charity. It was a starter pack for rebirth. Each returning household received a kit, 1 male goat and 2 females, or a pair of cattle along with feed, vaccines, and training in animal care. The government wasn't merely handing out goats. It was building a chain of livelihoods. Across villages like Gabu, Tamasco, and Bobo Dioulasso, small herds began to appear beside newly rebuilt homes. Their bleats filled the mornings, blending with children's laughter, simple sounds, yet deeply powerful. Life had returned. Each animal was registered, health-checked, and vaccinated under a national program coordinated by the Ministry of Agriculture and the FAO. In 2025, a nationwide vaccination campaign against foot and mouth disease protected over 2 million livestock. At the same time, construction began on a modern meat processing and cold chain facility in Bobo Dioulasso, funded by the African Development Bank. From now on, Burkina Faso would no longer export just live cattle, but processed high-value meat products proudly branded Made in Burkina Faso. But beyond the numbers, the most profound change was in people's hearts. Women who once waited for aid now sustain themselves with goat milk and homemade cheese. Unemployed youth have become feed suppliers, veterinary assistants, and cold chain workers. And those who once survived on charity now supply the domestic market. A mother from the Nord region said, "The day I received 3 goats, I cried, not because they were valuable, but because, for the first time in years, I felt I could feed my children without anyone's pity." End of story. That is the power of self-reliance. Not in massive aid packages, but in small, well-placed opportunities. The government calls it the four-legged economy, an economy that starts in the pen and spreads to the marketplace. Each goat births a herd. Each herd builds a cooperative. Each cooperative creates a market, a self-sustaining ecosystem, small but resilient, powered by trust, not foreign aid. The West may measure progress in GDP, but the people here measure happiness differently. By the number of goats in their pen, the laughter of their children, and the fact that they can survive by their own hands. Yes, challenges remain: drought, water scarcity, animal feed. But within those hardships, the people have found something no aid could ever give pride. The goats, the cattle, and even the humble pens are more than symbols of economic recovery. They are emblems of dignity reborn. From the depths of war and poverty, the people of Burkina Faso have proven they do not need pity, only a chance. And as the herds begin to grow, as meals return to family tables, a new question arises. How can every family have the same chance? How can the most vulnerable rise together? The answer lies in a new kind of social contract, a system where every life is registered, protected, and uplifted by the hand of the state. When the herds had returned and the fields had turned green again, a new question emerged, clearer than ever. How can every citizen have the chance to begin again, no matter who they are? Because recovery is not just about rebuilding homes, it's about rebuilding lives. The government of Burkina Faso understood that a nation cannot be reborn without a system that protects its people, every person, every family. Under the leadership of President Ibrahim Traoré, a new social safety network was created, the 3 pillars of rebirth: RSU, PAMPV, and RAMU. At first glance, these acronyms may sound bureaucratic, but behind them are the stories of millions of lives. The Unified Social Registry, the foundation of it all. Here, every household is registered, verified, and assigned a unique identification code. No more cases of one family receiving aid twice, while another is forgotten. Now, every citizen returning from displacement camps has a name on the list, a place within the system. A woman from Samatenga province said through tears, "I thought I'd been forgotten, but when the officials came with their computers and asked for my child's name, I knew my country still remembers me." That is the power of data, but even more, the power of recognition. Every recorded name is a quiet promise. You belong to this nation. The second pillar, PAMPV, a program of cash support and micro-entrepreneurship for poor and vulnerable households. The amounts are modest, but they mean survival. A widow can buy feed for her goats. A mother can reopen her market stall. A child can return to school. Thousands of women who once lived in displacement camps are now small business owners selling goat milk, handmade soap, or running tailoring shops. The government does not grant charity, it gives opportunity. And from those small sparks, local economies begin to turn little wheels connecting into the great engine of recovery. The third pillar, RAMU, the universal health insurance system. In a nation that has lost so much to war and disease, RAMU is like a shield for the fragile. Now, people can visit clinics, receive medicine, and get treatment without selling their only cow. Children are fully vaccinated. Pregnant women are cared for. The elderly are treated without shame, without fear. These three pillars connect like the lifelines of a reborn body. RSU identifies who needs help. PAMFI provides the means to live. RAMU protects them from risk. Together, they form a circle of recovery from identity to livelihood to health to dignity. In a speech in Ouagadougou, Traoré spoke slowly and firmly. A return without support is a return to danger. But when the state stands beside its people, not with words, but with systems, we do not just rebuild, we are reborn. The results speak clearly. In the Sahel and Centre-Nord regions, school attendance has risen by nearly 30%. Health insurance coverage has doubled in just 1 year. And most importantly, people now believe that the state is with them, not above them. The West may call it social policy, but the people of Burkina call it something else: responsibility and humanity. A nation once shattered is learning to lift itself not through slogans, but through systems built on compassion and truth. Numbers that once seemed dry now carry the weight of tears and gratitude. When security is restored, when the rice grows green, when the herds thrive, and when the state embraces the vulnerable, something miraculous happens. Faith returns. But the world outside still doubts. They look at Burkina Faso through the lens of suspicion. Burkina Faso. Once, the world spoke its name with familiar words: poverty, conflict, humanitarian aid. But today, that same name is being spoken alongside new ones: sovereignty, dignity, self-reliance. The world is confused. The West unsettled. Because in an era where most nations borrow to survive, one people have chosen to stand up not by asking, but by doing. Since 2023, international headlines have begun to focus on Ibrahim Traoré, the young man in a red beret, plain uniform, short on words but rich in action. Some call him the young leader challenging the global order, a rebel in the old world. Others dismiss him, a military ruler, undemocratic, a risk of isolation. Yet amid the noise, the voices of ordinary Burkinabe rise clearer than ever. In the village of Tamasco, a farmer told a local radio reporter, "They say we don't have democracy. But when terrorists occupied our village, did anyone ask what we wanted? Now we have schools, markets, and water. That is real freedom." His words pierced through the long analyses written in Paris or Washington. Because while the world debates form, Burkina Faso is building substance, the freedom to live, to work, to raise children without fear. In a powerful address at the end of 2024, Traoré stood before thousands in Ouagadougou and said, "Freedom is not the ballot if the one holding it is hungry. Democracy means nothing if children cannot go to school. We need a new order, one where human dignity stands above every resolution." It was not defiance, it was redefinition, a rewriting of what sovereignty truly means. No longer just a political term, but a state of the soul. When the world criticized, Burkina Faso did not argue back. They responded with action. Reopening 700 wells, rebuilding over 300 schools, launching dozens of agro-processing plants. Each project was an answer. Each rice field, each goat herd, a silent declaration of independence. In Europe, they discuss aid. In Burkina, they discuss self-reliance. In the West, they fear the rise of the military. Here, the people are proud because for the first time, soldiers carry not just guns, but hoes. What captures the world's attention is not just the progress, it's the attitude. No bitterness, no begging, no inferiority. Burkina Faso does not rise to become a superpower, they rise simply to own their lives, and their story is spreading across Africa. In Mali, Niger, Togo, conversations have begun. If Burkina can do it, why not us? Young people in Dakar, Lagos, and Accra now talk about food sovereignty, the goat economy, and the RSU system. Words once technical now pulse with meaning symbols of a new African confidence that the continent need not survive on anyone's pity. A Senegalese commentator wrote, "Burkina Faso is not defying the world. They are reminding it that human dignity cannot be imported or exported. It must be cultivated in one's own soil." That is the real dialogue, not between governments and donors, but between Africa and itself. And in that dialogue, Burkina Faso stands at the center, a humble teacher, speaking little, doing much, reminding the world, do not speak of democracy when your people are hungry. Do not speak of freedom when they cannot live. This dialogue is not over. But in the Sahel's evening light, one truth has become clear. Burkina Faso is no longer a victim. They are a mirror, and behind that mirror, a new generation is rising. The children of the Sahel, bearers of a new faith in their land and their future. As the morning sun rises over the Sahel plains, its golden light cuts through the dust and spills into the courtyard of Gabu Village School. Children sit under a mango tree, eyes bright, reading aloud in Moray and French in the languages of their own homeland. For Burkina Faso, this is the true miracle, because just a few years ago there was no sound of lessons here. Only gunfire, only crying, only classrooms reduced to ash. But now, with security restored and the land reborn, education has returned, and with it, a new generation is rising. President Ibrahim Traoré once told a group of teachers in Ouagadougou, "If you want to know the future of a nation, look into the eyes of its children walking to school. If they shine, the country has hope." The government understands that true sovereignty does not lie only in fields or herds, but in the minds of the next generation. Since 2023, the Reconstruction Schools program has been in motion. Hundreds of classrooms built from local materials, compressed clay bricks, and recycled tin roofs. Thousands of volunteer teachers, many of them once victims of war, have returned to teach again. And most importantly, every child receives a warm lunch cooked with food grown in their own homeland. Those meals are more than nutrition, they are pride. Because when a child eats rice grown by their parents, drinks milk from their village's goats, they understand something profound. They live in a nation that can feed itself. In Boucle de Mohun, a young teacher named Aisha Dembele, once displaced by terror, now stands again before her class. Her warm voice carries over the dusty air. "We have lost much, but we still have words, and words will lead us home." The children sit still, listening. Then they read aloud together. "La dignité ne se donne pas, elle se construit." Dignity is not given, it is built. That sentence is no longer a distant philosophy. It has become the guiding truth of an entire generation. From these small classrooms, Burkina Faso is sowing seeds of knowledge and self-worth. Children learn about farming, animal care, water conservation, and solar energy lessons rooted in their land, not imported from elsewhere. This is not borrowed education, it is education for life. A 10-year-old boy in Tamasco told a reporter, "I want to be an engineer who builds wells, because when we have water, our village can live." A simple dream, yet within it lies the blueprint of a nation's future. This generation born amid war but growing up in hope is the generation of new faith. They are not burdened by dependency. They have seen their parents work, their government protect, and the results with their own eyes. They do not need to be convinced that Burkina Faso can. They are living proof that it already is. That is Traoré's greatest victory, not GDP growth, but the return of confidence in the hearts of the young. For a nation cannot be conquered when its children believe it deserves respect. But for these dreams to endure, the country needs something greater than education. It needs a lasting faith in the future. And that faith is taking root in the heart of the Sahel, a new spirit, where people no longer just survive, but begin to dream again. Burkina Faso, once a land gripped by fear, is learning again, something that should be simple: how to dream. Not dreams of luxury or wealth, but the dream of living as a people with dignity, with faith, and with the right to decide their own destiny. After years of smoke and sorrow, as people return home, as roads are rebuilt and roofs rise again, something remarkable has happened. People have begun to believe that the future is real. They no longer say if, they say when. They no longer ask, can we? They say, we are doing it. Soaking. In the squares of Ouagadougou, weekend nights are no longer guarded by soldiers. Now there is music, light, and the national flag dancing in the rhythm of djembe drums. Young people gather in small startup circles building irrigation tech, solar systems, and cereal processing workshops. They call themselves Generation Dignité, the generation of dignity. A young woman named Salimata, a solar energy engineer, said on national radio, "We don't want to leave our country. We want to stay because now Burkina has given us a reason to believe." That reason did not come from political promises. It came from visible change, from flowing wells, from golden rice fields, from classrooms full of laughter. It came from faith rebuilt through daily action, through work, through pride. President Ibrahim Traoré once said, "The people don't need us to talk about hope. They just need to see hope living around them." And indeed they have seen it. Across the Sahel, the government has launched Trial City, the country's first experimental self-sufficient city, a town built not with foreign aid but with the hands of young engineers, farmers and veterans. Its streets are paved with local stone, its power comes from the sun, and its water flows from restored wells. Trial City is more than a project, it is the symbol of a nation's reborn faith. Now, the people of Burkina no longer look back in pain, they look forward with purpose. They talk about exporting clean meat, creating a national agricultural university, forming a Sahelian alliance free from the IMF. Dreams once mocked as impossible have become plans. The West may ask in disbelief, how can a poor, landlocked nation dream of becoming the food hub of West Africa? But the people of Burkina do not call it ambition, they call it a mission. Because a people who have tasted hunger and humiliation know that dignity is the one thing that cannot be borrowed. And once they find faith again, nothing can stop them from dreaming big. On lands once in ruins, young hands are rebuilding the statue of Thomas Sankara, the hero who once said, "We must dare to invent the future ourselves." That quote has become the oath of a new generation. They do not wait for miracles, they are the miracle. In the Sahel night, beneath a sky full of stars, the drums and voices rise again. Burkina Faso n'est pas tombé, il s'est relevé. It is not just a song, it is the declaration of a people who have learned once more to believe, to dream, and to stand tall. But dreams cannot live on faith alone. They must be protected, kept burning, and passed on to those who come after. Morning rises over Trial City. The first rays of light spill across earthen rooftops, shimmering on droplets of water left from the long night. In the distant fields, farmers bend to sow their seeds. En medio del Sahel, el gobierno inició la creación de Trial City, la primera ciudad autosuficiente del país. Un proyecto no financiado por donaciones extranjeras, sino construido con manos burkinesas, ingenieros jóvenes, campesinos y veteranos. Calles pavimentadas con piedra local, energía solar, agua bombeada de pozos regenerados. Trial City no es solo una obra urbana, es el símbolo de la fe recuperada. Hoy, los burkineses ya no miran su pasado con dolor, sino su futuro con deseo. And Burkina Faso is no miracle, it is evidence of the power of faith, of work, and of humanity. They did not win with aid money, but with will. The will to plant again, to rebuild, to live. These farmers, these mothers, these children, they do not need pity. They need to be seen, heard, respected. For they have proven that even in poverty, people can rise, stand tall, and say, "We are still here, and we still dream." As the night fades, the Sahel awakens. From the dry soil come shoots of rice, bursts of laughter, and new homes taking shape, together forming a symphony of rebirth. This small, forgotten nation now reminds humanity of a timeless lesson. There is no such thing as a dead land, only peoples who stop believing. Burkina Faso chose to believe, and through that belief, they achieved something that commands the world's respect, a resurrection without miracles. Voice deep and resolute. This story is not only Burkina Faso's. En las noches del Sahel, bajo un cielo lleno de estrellas, se escuchan tambores y cantos que viajan con el viento. Burkina Faso n'est pas tombé, il s'est relevé. No es solo una canción, es la declaración de un pueblo que ha aprendido a creer, a soñar y a mantenerse de pie. Pero los sueños no bastan con nacer. Deben protegerse, alimentarse y transmitirse a quienes vendrán después. Y por eso, la historia llega a su amanecer. Amanece sobre Trial City. And if you believe that dignity, freedom, and faith still matter, then share this story so that the light of Burkina Faso can shine even farther. Don't forget to leave your thoughts. What does the journey of Burkina Faso mean to you? And if you believe in the power of humanity, subscribe to join us as we continue telling stories of faith, of dignity, and of freedom.